ask you, did you want to talk books this time, or did you want to talk
I
books
got
next?
books here, so we
Wow.
can talk books if you want to talk books.
Okay. I'd love that.
Okay. So
So
do you want to talk about regular books or do you want to talk about astrology books? What kind of books you want to talk about?
you want to talk about astrology, like a top sort of, well, not top five, but just sort of maybe five influences, or what's
Yeah,
the format for you? What would you like to talk about?
that sounds good. I like your idea. I can tell
You
you,
can include your book.
yes, Antoinette, my book, very inspiring to myself.
Yeah, yeah.
No, you're so funny. Okay. So yeah, I have my books here. I'm gonna straighten this guy out. So yeah, so we're talking about astrology books that we like or that are inspiring to us or that we use,
Mm.
right? Okay, this one is the one that I started off with her, and this is what I recommend to a lot of people. It's Astrology for Yourself, and I still go back to it because it has all these key words and all these key phrases and stuff like that, unskillful and skillful applications, which sometimes, when you're just learning, you can't keep all that in your mind. I mean, even after doing this for years and years and years, like, what does that mean again? I have to look stuff up. I have to figure things out. It's such a huge, vast. So, anyways, this Astrology for Yourself, I think that'd be my number one book for a beginner to get because it is Dimitri George and she's got a huge brilliance to her. I have the other book too. This one? Oh yeah, this is my other one that I have her Astrology for Your Authentic Self. And that
Yeah.
one's really, really it's kind of like the baby between her uh, ancient astrology books and this, which is this is the in between one. It's kind of like the bridge between those two things that she was doing. So she's excellent.
Well, on the subject of Demetra George, because I adore her. She was one of my first she
Yeah.
was the first encounter I had with traditional astrology in terms of Western, Hellenistic astrology. And I remember, and this is it here, and it's still a beloved book, The Mysteries of the Dark Moon. And I absolutely adore it as a woman who is born on the dark moon, a balsamic moon. But it's the healing power of the dark goddess. And I remember being in because I read this. This was published in 1992, and I remember encountering this weirdly in a university library. Uh, there you go, 1995. It goes to
Really?
show you how old I am. And and I was trying to do research for, I remember very clearly an essay on subversive fairy tales, which I am absolutely in love with. That it's kind of one of my areas of literature, myth and fairy tales. And
Subversive though. That's exciting.
yeah, overturning the traditional kind of way of
Yeah,
looking at it.
I love it.
And so, people like Angela Carter, who was a British writer. But anyway, that's beside the point. I discovered this as a form of procrastination. Not that I didn't love what I was doing, but when I discovered this, I just was completely entranced because I already was in love with astrology from a very young age. But this brought so much more into it with everything from Hecate to Lilith.
Mm.
There's just a huge, and also talking about the phases of the moon in terms of our birth phases, and it's very much through the lens of astrology, and it's just amazing. And it's basically learn to heal through the power of your own dark moon for both personal and planetary renewal. It will forever change how you experience the dark. And it certainly did that for me because it was combining those psychological, mythical, spiritual, and astrological elements. And I just found it enchanting and still do. I return to it virtually every year. It's so dog-eared. And oh, by the way, it's not the library's copy. I didn't steal it. I bought my own.
Stick it in your knapsack.
I did take it out for a long time, but yeah.
You got your own.
So
It's so funny
that
that we both had the Dimitri George book first.
just, why not begin with Demetra? She's just iconic.
Excellent. Excellent.
And as far as other astrology legends go, I
Hmm.
also have to say that this
Oh,
is Chris Brennan. I mean, he is he is so rigorous and
so
so
rigorous.
ethical, and just as far as one of the cornerstones. It's just such a seminal work. It's going to be there for a very long time to come. It's not necessarily, it is Hellenistic astrology. It's not necessarily a beginner's kind of choice by any means. Some people say it's dry. I really love it, but I dip in and out of it, and it's just got everything there. And as far as I just, as a Hellenistic astrologer, I have huge respect for his work.
If anybody doesn't know, he has the podcast, the astrology podcast, like the astrology podcast. So it really elevates our, I don't know, our craft in a way to something that's just so not frou-frou, not woo at all. So if you haven't listened to the astrology podcast, that would be a definite thing to do.
It's such an amazing, generous resource
It's
as well,
so
because it
generous.
shares so much information. It's a great learning tool. And he's also a teacher, so he has classes as well on his website. But yeah, it's just remarkable that it really contributes to the field of astrology in
Incredible.
a brilliant way. It represents astrology very, very well too. So,
And he was just a young, little sprightly guy when he met the Roberts, right? Didn't he have a lot to do with the Project Hindsight? So
absolutely
speaking of Roberts, here's my Robert hand is my next.
fantastic.
So I have one that's online too. So I have all three of them. This is the astrology horoscope symbols. I love this book, man. This book is just
Good,
brilliant and
solid.
solid. Just so much that you don't get anywhere else. It's all the planets, all the basics of astrology, but in such an elevated way. The core meanings of everything. It's just fantastic. And then this is my new one that I just got from him because I'm really into synastry right now and trying to understand planetary relationships. So this is planets in composite. So it's composite charts. And he went through and did every single possible type of composite chart that could, any element that would be in a composite chart. So for example, like composite sun square composite ascendant, composite sun in the houses. And so you can kind of figure out relationships that way through a composite chart. And then the third one is planets in transit. I think that's what it's called. That's the one I have online, our Kindle version of it. And that I go to all the time. If you want to know anything about transits that are, the general, what usually happens when Uranus is on someone's moon or whatever, and stuff like that. He's spot on. And when he doesn't know, this is my favorite thing. When a teacher doesn't know and they say, I don't know. I love that because you
Yes.
can trust them when they say they know. And when they don't know, it's fine. Like it's okay not to know something. For
Yeah.
example, Pluto and Pluto usually doesn't come into an opposition in a lifetime. Pluto opposite Pluto. So
That's right.
yeah, because of Pluto's weird elliptical orbit, it takes longer to go through some signs than others. Like Scorpio, it went through in 11 years or something. It goes through fast, and then the other ones takes 20 something or up to 30 years, I think. So basically, the people that were born with Pluto and Leo, they're going to get a Pluto opposition. But in his book, you look up Pluto opposite Pluto, and he's like, nobody's had it before. So I don't know. He's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go. So it's not
So
usually
that's
what happens in a human
true.
lifetime.
Yeah,
So
because that's really the boomer generation. That's my parents' generation and a bit younger. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, that's going to be challenging. They hold a lot of the wealth, I suppose. And
Well, yeah, a lot of the wealth is that's right. And so it'll be interesting. But I just like that was it. Okay, your turn.
okay, so from going from a textbook like the Chris Brennan, I'm actually going to choose. Now, this is not astrological at
Okay.
all, really. But as a lover of astrology and myth, this book
Ooh.
I adore by Madeline Miller, Circe. And it's
Ooh.
a retelling of the sorceress Circe from Homer's Odyssey.
Awesome.
And she was the daughter of Helios, the sun god,
Mm,
and as far as I know. And she's it's really, I love these fictional retellings of ancient myths,
me too.
because even though it's not strictly astrological, I mean, there are, characters like Hermes and Aphrodite that appear sort of in the background, but it's that you really enter into an imaginative, rich poetic space of discovering kind of what the nature is of these. It just enriches the astrology the same way tarot maybe does, because it's so full of beautiful images and associations. There are many associations with Circe. She turned men into pigs who tried to invade her island, and she has the gift of transformation, but she was also a herbalist. And she was a protector of animals and, the creatures of her island that she was exiled to by her father, the sun god. And she also sheltered Odysseus for a number of years when he was shipwrecked on her island. And so there's just that story that's told. And I find that by revisiting some of these ancient Greek myths, it just brings even more depth and dimension to, and also passion for the astrology that I do as well, because I just love the storytelling element that's woven through these landscapes that become very, very alive with the gods. The gods become alive. The planetary gods become very vibrant and tangible and tactile in a lot of ways. So it's just fun.
And the story of something like the Odyssey or the Iliad, it's not easy reading, but the story is so fascinating, so good. So I agree. I love when they take those stories that are so deeply mythic, and it's basically in our DNA. Those are the beginnings of really what the whole point of it is. And it's hard to enter into something like the Odyssey, but it's not hard to enter a book like that. It makes it so much more accessible. I love that choice.
Yeah, that's so true. And it can be a sort of a pathway or, into some of the more complex. It's an invitation to
It's
those
an
more complex
invitation.
texts
That's
as
right.
well.
Okay, so then I'm gonna pick. This was not the next on my list, but I like that this kind of goes with it. This is my new love of my life book. I'm like so in love with this book. Okay, this is The Mythic Image by Joseph Campbell. It has so much incredible like world myth. It's not just one. He talks about Asia. He talks about South America. He talks about the Western, European, every single thing that you can imagine, Indian, everything. And he finds these connections to the myth. The myth is something we've lost that connection to. And I think that's my idea of what astrology can do, is bring you back to your own myth. All these planets that are involved in our story in different variants of this. Not every Venus is going to be the same, right? It depends on what sign it's in and what planets it's talking to. And that's part of your myth, or that's part of the myth of your life. And that's what brings us back to feeling like there's more. We're not just here for consumerism or materialism. We're here for a mythic, epic journey. So I love Joseph Campbell, and that's my next choice.
I
Okay.
love that book.
This is a text from, obviously it's like a classroom text or something like that. And I think I got it for $10.
Oh,
So
that's good.
yeah,
Wow.
a lot less than even it was in the 70s.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right, your turn.
Okay. Well, I have to choose between a couple here, but I'm sort of thinking that, look, I've got to go back to it because it is such a brilliant resource, and that is
Oh,
that one, which is The Archetypal Universe by Ren Butler.
yeah, I got this.
It's
That
just
was the next on my pile.
such a favorite, resource. We can both talk about this one then, because
It's okay. I have another one.
yeah, it's just so good. And it really, you look at so many different planetary combinations and
Amazing what he
what their
did.
delineations are. There's so many brilliant keywords. But this author also divides them up into, say, for instance, the sun in a combination with Mars, and he breaks down not only the principles, but there's the characters and themes, the shadow qualities, how it appears in the arts, certain archetypes, dreams and images. Like, there's so much going on here, and it's just it's actually, I think one of our teachers referred to it as the archetypal cookbook. Is that right? And that's so perfect, because it really is. You can kind of dive in and just it's such a quick, brilliant reference, and it also triggers your own imagination. It is, it really gets you sort of thinking about planetary combinations.
I have this other book too. I was trying to find it on my phone, Pathways to Wellness. That one I have digital version. And
Yeah.
I got really lucky with it because once, for some reason, it was only $1 on Kindle at one point, and now it's not.
Ah,
Now it's not.
mm,
But it was before I had the archetypal universe because I didn't have the money or whatever at the time to buy this. There's only so many books I can get at a time. But that one, it was only $1, and now it's much more. But it is really interesting. So a lot of people are also into like plant medicine right now. So that has a lot of information about that. Anyway, it covers a lot of the same content in a way, but it's just really good. I really liked
I
it.
must, for some reason, that has gone right past me. I didn't even know that existed. And as someone who is a herbalist, I just think that's fascinating. I
Oh,
must really look that up.
it's really cool because it's
Right.
also holotropic breathing and stuff. So it's not just plant medicine. Like it can be in meditation. So basically, if there's a certain planetary alignment or certain thing like going on, this is what you can expect, or these are the themes that might come up. So it gives
Brilliant.
you kind of an idea of maybe when to plan those sorts of things about, you don't probably want it when Saturn is squaring your moon or something like that. Or, you know
That's
what I mean?
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's fascinating. Brilliant. So, oh, my turn, is it? Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because we both had the same book.
Okay. Well,
But
I've
I
got,
had that.
it's actually really tricky to choose. Because I thought I would mention, now this is another astrologer who's very active now, and I bought this a while ago, and I think it might be helpful for people.
Hmm.
It's Danielle Blackwood's Lantern in the Dark.
Hmm.
And she is looking at, she's also a counselor as well as an astrologer, and
Right.
she's got a lot of experience too in the counseling field, and a Jungian counselor. She's got qualifications in Jungian therapy as well, but she's really looking at a lot of transits, and certainly Saturn and midlife transits as well, like the Uranus opposition, and how to it has a mythic approach, a story sort of telling approach, but also some quite practical rituals for people to
Oh,
navigate through these sort of times in their lives.
beautiful.
And I just think that it was worth mentioning because it's quite an original sort of take, but it's a beautiful. I love any kind of thing to do with storytelling and myth, and I think that it's A Lantern in the Dark was
Mm.
named for Vasilisa, in the Baba Yaga myth,
Mm. No, I don't.
Vasilisa the Beautiful or Vasilisa the Wise, and there's a Russian fairy tale, and so she talks about that. She talks about this in the Saturn return, the second Saturn return, the
Mm.
Neptune square. There's a whole lot of different phases of your astrological kind of life to be navigating those tricky aspects, those tricky times. And I just thought that I actually purchased it to enrich my readings for helping people through certain things. And I do want to sort of acknowledge her that she's really done some good work there, and it's a good book. It's worth having a look at.
I love that.
Hmm.
It brings in ritual too to those things. When I was going through my Uranus opposition, that's when I started my channel too. And I just like, why isn't everybody talking about this? This is so extremely interesting. All the things that happen during a Uranus opposition, and to build that into ritual and myth and story, and just to live a mythic life. To add that in is so cool. Love it.
We are mythic beings. We are storied beings. I
Yeah.
think that there's so much amazing kind of magic in us that way. So yeah,
We
we
just
don't
have
have to
to,
go outside to find
yeah.
that. It's
Just
yeah.
got to reach in and grab it and hold on to it and explore it. It's so exciting.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mm.
well, I have my last book. This is I think this was my first after, well, Stephen Forrest was the first book I think I ever read. That was my first book, astrology book that I bought. But then I found another Stephen. This is Stephen Arroyo, and I love everything that he writes. I've read this book multiple times and I still don't get it. Like
Hey.
I could read it many, many, many more times, and it's like, oh, okay. It's astrology, karma, and transformation. And so basically, it's the inner dimensions of the birth chart. He focuses mostly on um, anything that has to do with karma, but Pluto, Saturn, Uranus, nature cycles, transformation, Moon, Neptune, all these aspects that happen, relationships between those things, the cycles of transformation. He's just so good. I have all of his books. That the other one that is about synastry, I really like that one too, because it goes really deep into all the different kinds of Mars and Venus relationships that you could have. And I think that's really the key to understanding synastry between, partners, romantic
Yeah,
partners, is understanding
definitely.
the Mars and the Venus connections, or
Yeah.
Venus to Venus, Mars to Mars. And he's also a psychologist. I don't know if he's Jungian or not, but yeah,
See, I haven't,
he's
I must
wonderful.
read him. I keep seeing that book and I'm just going, I can't believe I have not read that book. But that's another one I'm going to, thank you for that, because I'm going
Yeah.
to add that to my list of I'm going to read that.
He's so under the radar too. Like he's kind of one of those people that he's like, okay, fine, I'll share what I know, because he doesn't have to, he doesn't
Okay.
have to do
Yeah.
it. But he's like, okay, here, I'll tell you what, and not in a bad way. Just it's like, that he's not doing it to show off. He's not doing it for fame or glory. I just love people like that. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
here's what I'll share with you on what I know. So he doesn't have that many books, but most of his writing is from the 70s, 80s.
And what kind of astrology does he do? Is that
Um,
evolutionary astrology or is it
no,
something
no.
no?
I don't know exactly what he does a lot to do with the four elements. He talks a lot about the elemental. So I'm not sure how
Lovely.
you would categorize him, but he likes to elementally categorize things.
Yes. I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
I'm really getting
You
more
know,
interested in that too. I think it's really
yeah.
awesome.
And
Yeah.
and that kind of that gels with me as a Cap ascendant with the ascendant in the first decan of Capricorn. It's all knowing all of the elements. It's just
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you'd
That's
like
a
him a
good
lot. But
thing.
this is like, I think this is his masterpiece, I'll be honest.
Okay.
This is where
Yep.
he's really got all
So
of
it's
his.
Astrology, Karma, and Transformation
That's
by
right.
Stephen Forrest.
Stephen Arroyo, not Stephen Forrest.
Sorry, Stephen Arroyo. Why did
Yeah.
I?
Stephen Forrest is great, but he's really entertaining. He's more if you read his stuff, it's more to be uh astro entertained. I think you learn,
Ah,
but he's such a good
yes,
writer to, make little stories, and you find like you're entertained and you enjoy hanging out with Stephen Forrest. But Stephen Arroyo makes your brain stretch.
Stephen Arroyo. Yeah, my
Yeah.
mistake. Stephen Arroyo. Okay.
Yeah, Stephen Arroyo.
So, so my very last one that I'm just an honorable mention, and it's not there's this book, but there's so many of hers, which is Bernadet Brady, which is the
Oh,
star and
cool.
planet combinations. Because again, getting back to myth, this involves the star myths. It's also I would not recommend this for beginners, though. There are other there are other perhaps books. Anything by Bernadet Brady is fantastic for the
Yeah.
fixed stars, and I just find
Does she
this
have one
brilliant.
about like a eagle and a there's Bernadette Brady, the eagle and something.
Possibly.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought maybe you'd
I'd
know
have
that
to look
one.
that up. But yeah, I just find this brilliant because it talks about the myths of the stars, but it also has talks, getting into tech stuff, but it talks about parents and heliacal setting stars and rising stars and those in the birth chart, which is a whole other branch of,
Mm.
traditional astrology. But it is very interesting. And as someone who is just in love with myth and story, I also find that the myths of these stars, these fixed stars, it just enriches everything else that we're looking at, and looking at where some of those fixed stars are in regards to the planets, the visible planets and even the modern outers, and what when they encounter these fixed stars, reading astrology through that, or understanding astrology through those moments as well, it changes so much of what you see and how to interpret those transits too.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of years ago, a few years ago, I had my eyes completely opened. And it's not a branch of astrology that I've gone and specialized in, but I have great admiration for, and I do work with them on the, just lightly. I don't delve too deeply sometimes, but I love that style.
That's so cool. I have one more if you want a bonus one for me. Okay, let me just look at my
Have a bonus.
bonus. And I could keep going. We could keep going. Like,
yeah, we're pillaging your shelves there.
they're looking kind of sad back there. This is a really an odd book that I think is interesting too. It's A.T. Atman is his name, Atman, A.T. Man. And it's a new vision of astrology, but this was the first time I ever saw, see if it'll show in the, he has this idea about gestation in astrology. Like, so your chart is actually your gestation. Like you can tell before birth about your life into like who was the first to initiate, your mother or your father, what was going on in their situation while you're in utero, and basically all the things that happen while you're in utero, they are part of your story as you live out your entire life.
Goodness me. So
Yeah.
what do you look at to see that exactly?
Well, yeah, that's what this whole book is about. And then
Because I know the 12th house is to do with.
well, he starts with the ninth house. The ninth house is conception. So it's the ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th. Those are the houses you look at.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
after the 12th is when you're born. But this was the first time I ever saw, I don't know if you can see that, but that was the first time I ever saw the birth chart, like how it's actually a 3D thing and it's not a 2D thing. And it actually is reminiscent of DNA. It's the same
Yes,
sort
that's
of
what I was going to say. It
design.
looks like a helix, a
Yeah.
double helix.
Yeah. So that's what our birth
Incredible.
chart really is, because it's it's the solar system in the moment that you're born, and it's a 3D thing. I don't know. It's super cool. Anyway, this is a little bit of an interesting
Microcosm.
little gem. Yeah. A new vision of astrology. He's really smart.
Yeah.
He's an artist. He does a lot of mandala stuff. He's
And who's the
still
author again? Sorry?
AT man at man.
A.T. Man.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Okay.
amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah, there's a few there to add to my list.
Same. I'm excited. I want to read the circuit. Isn't that the name of your cat too?
Circe, yes.
Thirsty?
Yeah. I named her because it is one of my favorite novels. And that's a big call, I think.
Yeah.
Because I've just got so many favorite books, but that I've reread that. It's a beautiful, and I've that's like maybe my fourth or fifth copy because I loan them. They don't come back, and
They
other
don't
people
come
fall
back.
in love with them. I've recommended it to so many people, but it's yeah. She also wrote the Song of Achilles, which
Oh
was
yeah, I
another,
have that one. I have that on my library, on my
which
Kindle.
is yeah, which was great. But this is my absolute favorite.
Awesome.
And Chiron was in the Song of Achilles, so.
I haven't read it yet, so I'm
Okay,
excited
yeah.
to. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm
Yeah.
excited.
But
Awesome,
no, thank you.
Antoinette.
That's really fantastic. I love talking books and astrology kind of related books where, that's a whole other conversation that's been really rewarding.
I loved it.
Thank you,
Okay.
Lindsay, for everything.
Thank you, Antoinette. I enjoy you so much.
Me too.
Two, two and a half
So
hours into it, I'm still like,
yeah, I'll let
keep sparking. Like, oh, I want to talk to you about this too. All right. Anyways, thank you so
yeah,
much. I appreciate
thank
you.
you.
Oh, do you want to tell people where to find you before we
Well,
end?
yeah, you can find me on pomegranateastrology.com, www.pomegranateastrology.com.
Mhm.
And that's really where, and on Substack as well, Pomegranate Stars, I think, or Stars and Pomegranates, just Pomegranate Astrology is easier. And so, yeah, I offer consultations and things. So, yeah, and I have a podcast.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye.